What's it like to be back in Culture Club?
It's the same as it ever was, really. Do you know what I mean? I don't think people really changed that much. I think everybody's personalities are very much the same as they were 13 years ago. I mean, that was the ironic thing about meeting up the first time, is that everybody was exactly the same jokes, you know, the same sense of humour, the same things, you know, that annoyed each other. But I think what happens is that you get older and you become, hopefully, a little bit more tolerant, not completely, but a little bit more tolerant of each other, and you allow people to be who they want to be and keep your arguments to a minimum.
I'm having a lot more fun than I used to. For me personally, the experience is much better. I think everybody has grown quite a lot in experience and just life skills, you know. And I think that's enabled us to do this because we can, not just in tolerance, but just in. I really enjoy these guys now because I've accepted over the years that, you know, this is a really important thing in my life. These guys meant a lot to me, and this is a very special thing to have in your life. A group of guys that you really did something special with, wrote great songs with, and to be able to get the chance to go out again, you know, in your late 30s and do what you did when you were 24 is a wonderful thing. You know, it's like, I could do it again with what I know now, and that's a great thing. If you could do that in every relationship in your life. You know, I'm doing it with my relationship with these guys, but if you do any relationship, it'd be a great thing. So I think it's a lot different, and I'm having much more fun than I used to.
I think out of all of us, I think George has probably changed the most. I think he's a hell of a lot more experienced now and a lot more competent in a way. He finds his way around studios and the technical side of being in a band a lot easier now, I think.
And not as neurotic as
he's not as neurotic, and
that's a big one.
And Roy and I sleep together now.
No, I think things do. I think you still get annoyed by the same things, you know, and the same things about each other's personalities can be quite grating, especially on a long tour. But you walk away now, or you respond differently. You go and read a book, or you wait for the right opportunity to have a row or a conversation. Although, I must say, Roy and I did have a huge fight. Where was it? It was on
Detroit, on my birthday.
It was Roy's birthday in Detroit, and I got a bee in my bonnet about one of the songs being played badly and sort of screamed at Roy, and we had one of our classic screaming rows. But then we laughed, which is something we never would have done in the past. I mean, we were able to say...
I'm sorry I shouted at you.
I'm sorry I shouted at you, you know, and it was sort of funny.
Why now for the reunion?
I think the first thing was that The Wedding Singer came out in America, which was like a pastiche of the 80s, and they used one of our songs. And then this artist called Mace used a bit of Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? And then someone else did something in Jamaica, and there was all these kind of references to the 80s involving us. And then VH1 did this thing called Behind the Music, which the rest of the guys hated, which I loved. I thought it was great. It was very soap opera. But I thought it was really good. And then they asked us if we'd do a tour. And we said, well, why not?
Yeah, all right then.
When the opportunity arose, it was very much, well, assessing it in one's life and going, well, that seems, if we're ever going to do this, I think it has to be now, with the sort of whole nostalgia of Culture Club and the 80s coming back. And because Culture Club left a bitter taste in my mouth, I really looked at this as an opportunity to, you know, get rid of that and sweeten my whole attitude towards the band. And when I flew in from LA to see George, because basically we had to find out before we could even do it, how we were going to get along, you know. And like George said earlier, it was very much, we sort of just got in a room together and it was like we'd never been apart, and that was a very nice thing. So Culture Club, why now? I mean, it really is just a question of us being in a place where everybody can do this and enjoy it, rather than just it be everything. You know, it used to be everything. Culture Club was like...
It's the right time, and the time for some reason seems to be right. Things have gone very quiet.
Music and fashion go around in cycles of about 15 years, and sure enough, you know, the 80s have come back round. God knows what the 90s are going to be about in the year 2010,
because we're a bit premature as well when we split up. We didn't split up, we sort of blew up, didn't we? We just collapsed, basically. And I think a lot of the emphasis was on the problems, and we're sort of very much a pop group, and I think now people are realising the songs have stood up the test of time, and we can play. And that's one of the things that's a difference. There haven't been that many bands in the last 3 years. You had Oasis and a few others, but in the 80s there were so many groups. You wouldn't have 2 or 3 groups, you'd have 5, 6, 7 groups, and they would keep going, at least have 3 albums out. And I think that there's a desire for real songs now, and a bit of, lighten up.
Theatre.
A bit lighten up. Theatre, that's the word I'm grovelling for here. Just to lighten up. It's been a bit miserable, a bit serious,
George, your image has always dominated the band.
Thank God someone's got a hat.
Got to have a front. Always got to have a good
Imagine
front.
if there were 2 of us in the band.
Got to have a
2
front,
Georges.
Got to have a good front, man. Get out there, sing. Put a hat on. Put the dreadlocks on. Lovely. Off you go.
I mean, the thing is, for me, dressing up, before I started Culture Club, we started Culture Club, I was far more outrageous than I am now. I mean, I had to tone it down, really, just for the purpose of travelling, because I wouldn't have been able to carry boxes of, my Queen Boadicea outfit, my Carmen Miranda outfit. I mean, it just wouldn't have been practical. And people actually thought, when we started, that my look was really outrageous, but it was actually a really toned down look to what I wore every day. And I think the difference also is that, when you get a reunion of a band like Kiss, everybody knows that they're just kind of really dressing up and they take their makeup off and they're a bunch of lads, which is not the case with me. I'm not a lad.
So are the rest of you guys lads then?
Well, they want to be, but they're not really.
No. We're men trapped in men's bodies.
I'm not a lad, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I'm a lad.
I'm a dad. He is a lad. No, he is a lad. Yeah.
I'm a lad, I'm proud of it. It's the Essex in me.
Does the fact that the rest of you are dads make you feel any more responsible these days?
No.
Only when I get a school
until
report.
the tour, yeah.
I'm serious for about 10 minutes when I get the school reports, then I'm a lad again.
I tell you, it was actually difficult getting back onto the road, sort of 10 years, 12 years after, being apart. Having been a dad for 12 years and then suddenly jumping into being a pop star again, that was quite a trip, the first few weeks of the tour.
My daughter's 12, and initially she was very embarrassed because she thought, Daddy's, oh my God, what are all my friends going to say at Beverly Hills School? And now there's something funny about Culture Club. We're almost cool again because we've been gone for so long, and because, particularly with George being, the man about town that he is, he's kept a very good credibility about himself, which I think has transferred back to Culture Club. So there's something quite cool about it, and she's starting to get that a little bit.
I want my son to know what Daddy does or did. Instead of when he's
Not
13.
everything.
So, no, that's what I was going to say. Otherwise, when he's 13, Daddy's going to be hiding those pictures of that bloke dressed like a woman, What do you do, Dad?
What's the main difference between Culture Club then and now?
I think the difference between Culture Club then and now is...
About £400, I think. More than that, probably. Older, but not too much, The same.
We can still perform. It was very interesting getting back on stage. I was at stage fright for about 3 shows, then I suddenly realised, you know what? This is fun. And particularly when we got into the States and people started just going mad. It was very odd. I'm like, don't scream at me, I'm 37, And then I was like, no, go ahead and scream. This could be fun. We started running around on the stage again, and I was like, yeah, this is great. What an opportunity to get out that youthfulness that still fights to get out all the time. It's like playing with your kid you go out and for an hour and a half, you get to just act out. It's brilliant.
When we first discussed doing this tour, it was like 6-7 months before we actually did it, and as it got nearer and nearer, I began to get really terrified. And then once we were doing it, it was like, this is really weird. I kept getting very strange deja vu every day, and it just didn't feel like it was any different. And now that I'm home, I can't even believe that I've done it. It was really strange. Certainly a lot less stressful. I mean, I did enjoy it, really, really enjoyed it, and I don't normally enjoy touring at all.
I think it was so stressful then. I only realise now how stressful it was before. And I think I'm glad you said that. I feel exactly the same. I was building up to this tour. I was like, oh my God, I haven't been on tour for 10 years, packing the suitcase, and then it just went. We've done it, and we're back, and then we'll be off again. That's why it's quite strange doing this interview today, because it's almost thrown back into it. You've definitely got the 2 lives. I'm just warming up now.
The thing is now, everybody's reached a place in their lives where we all know ourselves really well. And so when you're in a position where everyone's kind of comfortable with their own lives and what they're doing, so Culture Club isn't what is there to lose? There's everything to gain. You know, there's the experience and the strength in the band, and that's what it is. I mean, if we go out, if we do a few more gigs and go, you know what, I'm not having fun anymore. That's it. So what?
And we don't have that pressure of being. We don't have that pressure of being trendy anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you're, a current band. We've had loads of ups and downs in our career, so we don't have that pressure of being trendy. If we make a bad record and it doesn't sell, so what? We can make another one. Because really at this stage, you're only as good as the record you make, and that's it. Whereas if you're a band like the Spice Girls or an up-and-coming band like All Saints or Bewitched, it's much more of an uphill struggle. We've already been down the dumper more times than you can care to mention. So it's a place I know well, and it's a place that I've crawled out of many times. So it doesn't bother me that much, you know what I mean? I think, if we do something and it's not accepted, then we can go back to the drawing board without all that pressure of being a new artist, which I think is much tougher.
But I think the reason everybody felt that getting back together, there wasn't much difference between then and now, is because there's a kind of timelessness about Culture Club, in particular the material. When we got together and started rehearsing, the songs just sounded so fresh, and that really said to us, yeah, this is going to work.
Did you get back together for the money?
First of all, there are no guarantees as far as money's concerned. There were lots of stories in the paper that said we've been offered £1 million or £3 million. That's not true. When you do a tour like this, you get a guaranteed fee per night, and if you do better than that, then you make money. So there was never any kind of guarantees of big, cash handouts or anything like that. And I think also when you say you're doing things for the money, what you're really doing is trashing the real reasons. Rock and roll isn't about money, it's about emotional needs. It's about healing in a way. I mean, I think sometimes you have to go back into a situation to understand it. When we first started rehearsing, I found myself getting angry, sad, bored, being happy, all these kind of emotions that weren't really tangible. I couldn't say why I felt that way. It was just that the songs were stirring up stuff that was laying dormant. And also a lot of the songs that we've performed as Culture Club, I haven't sung those songs in years. I mean, I've done a handful of songs in my own shows, but doing stuff like Black Money or That's the Way, it was really an interesting experience because you forget how emotional those songs are because they're stories, they're personal stories, and so it always kind of evokes emotion, whether you want it to or not. But then you get past that stage and you actually start enjoying it. And I feel, from my point of view, I can sing the songs with much more conviction now. I can sing Victims with much more feeling because I've been down a very rocky path, and I can come back to those songs and actually sing them with real understanding of the words.
John, most of these songs are written about you and your relationship with George. Does that make it hard to go back to them now?
For me, it was very difficult emotionally, doing the band back together. I have a wife now and a baby. It's very weird being in a band. Don't pull a face, don't let them kill you. But I didn't realise, especially songs like Black Money, I was playing them, I just thought, oh my God, I think I'm going to get through this. They're more emotional now than they were then. But after you've been on tour and you played them about 50 times, it's not so emotional after that. You just enjoy
the little denial switch back on.
No. You enjoy playing.
I think
more.
that's an interesting word, denial, because I think there was a lot of denial in the early days. I mean,
not a river in Africa.
We weren't we weren't one of those bands that ever sat down and kind of made ground rules or discussed emotional issues. We literally, I mean, as a writer, I dealt with them in my lyrics. That's how I dealt with them. And there were times when I would write songs that were really bitter, and nobody would ever sort of question or say, well, what's that about? Because most of the time it was kind of obvious. Because the song would sort of come after a fight or a situation. Literally the next day we'd have...
Well, that's enough, shut up.
A song. and I think there's been some really weird kind of ironies in Culture Club. I mean, the day that we got to number one with Do You Really Want to Help Me, we were in Scotland. And then John and I had a massive fight. We were in this hideous sort of hotel with like an orange candlewick bedspread, sort of stains on the wall. We had a massive fight and I was going to leave the band. That was it. I was packing my bags in the morning. Morning came, out came the champagne, we were number one. And that was really the stuff of Culture Club, that we'd have these ridiculous dramas where I would leave. That was, I'm leaving! And, and everyone would say, oh God, after a certain point, everyone would say, go on then, leave.
There
was a lot of that, there was a lot of that sort of drama, and then incredible sort of good news the next minute.
See, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had the round and you were going to leave the band. I
Rows,
was
the
busy-
row of rows.
Busy with 4 young Scottish girls and a bottle of champagne in the other room.
How is the relationship between the two of you nowadays?
I think that there may come a stage in the future where John and I can actually have a conversation beyond the sort of one-liners and a barrage of jokes. We haven't really got to that stage yet, but I think we will.
That's up to you.
I like his kid and I like his girlfriend. I get on better with them than I do with him. I mean, his girlfriend's lovely. I could actually become quite good friends with her because she's really sweet and chatty and stuff. I think John's reserved. Definitely. I'm amazed that I could come back into this group and feel kind of comfortable. Because, you know, when the idea for this tour first came up, my immediate reaction was, no, John. I said, I'm not working with him. And then I went home, sat down with some friends of mine, and they were like, oh, you're just being bitchy, you know. And I said, yeah, I suppose I am. So I called up the next morning and I said, well, there's no point doing Culture Club without him. But it was odd, you know, that the morning that we went to my manager's office to meet up, it was like, I actually called up from my house and said, I'm not coming.
And John did the same thing.
And my manager was like, everybody's here. And I said, I'm not coming. And then I went, joke!
And he did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
He called our manager and said, I'm not coming, joke. He said, George just did that. So, I mean, the thing is, it can't be Culture Club without John. It can't be Culture Club
No, obviously I didn't want to do
without
it. I didn't want
George,
to do it.
unless George Michael wants to do it. But,
Yeah,
you know,
he's not doing it. Yeah,
But we
Sorry.
can replace Roy.
I didn't want to do it originally, and then I remember I was actually driving up Marylebone Road, and I thought, no, sod this. I thought, you know, I'm going to do it. It's my band as much as everybody else's. You know?
The whole John and me thing, I mean, it's interesting for a lot of people. And I think that it's interesting to me. I mean, the whole twistedness of it is very appealing to me. And then I think my kind of motto is enough adventures and you have a life. You know, people say, well, why are you doing this again? I said, well, it was suggested, and on that day it sounded like a good idea. You know, and I don't really feel like I need to give an explanation. I mean, it's just such a mad idea to go back into a band with your ex-boyfriend and two people you haven't seen for 13 years. I mean, if that's not twisted, what is, you know? So I thought, yeah, I've got to do it, just to see whether I can.
Very colourful band, that's the thing. It's great, isn't it? It's a miracle that we're back together. Just that's enough at the moment.
it's a miracle.
In fact, it's a miracle.
That's what I saw.
It's a miracle.
What went wrong with Culture Club first time round?
For me, where we went wrong as a band was that we stopped being kind of organic and got too electronic. You know, by the third album, I'd stopped really writing stories. I was just writing anything. I was writing songs for the sake of songs rather than writing about my experiences and writing about my relationship with John or whatever. You know, things that were from my heart. And I think that was the problem. And you know, what I'd like to do in the future is really concentrate on being emotional with the songs rather than sort of being clever.
Tell us about your new material in the set, like the new single, I Just Want to Be Loved.
Well, that's an old song that we wrote 8 years ago. We haven't really written anything new. George had a song that he'd wrote, how many years ago? A couple of years ago?
About 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago, which he proposed to us and said, well, you know, do you think we could take this on the tour with us? And we said, yeah. And so we've got...
civilised?
Yeah, well, for me it was, because it's a great song. It's called Strange Voodoo. And for me, really, this tour is a means to an end. Hopefully we'll get on to a new album. And if it takes the direction of Strange Voodoo, I think it'd be a great album, you know.
But, I mean, the writing process has always been fraught, you know. And we've always argued because, obviously, when you start a band, you have a very clear idea about what you want it to be. And then, of course, you have the other members and they all come in with their musical ideas and their influences and become... In a way, Culture Club became a much more interesting band because of all those different ideas. It certainly didn't turn out to be the band that I wanted to be in originally, but now looking back, it was a much better idea than the one I had. But I think in terms of writing, yeah, I mean, I don't think there'd be any point just doing this, you know, sort of nostalgia tour and it not leading anywhere because I'm not a nostalgia freak. I mean, I've spent the last 10 years trying to escape from my past because people tend to hold you in a certain place, particularly if you're a musician. So I spent a long time hating the whole Culture Club thing, running away from it, you know, refusing to do certain songs. But when the idea for this tour came up, immediately I said, well, I don't just want it to be a tour, because that would be like Jerry and the Pacemakers, you know. I want to actually make a new record, because I think for us, that would represent a very massive creative challenge. to actually go and do another great record. Because we only really did one great record, Colour by Numbers. That was the best record we ever did.
Yeah, I think when the band sort of demised around sort of 86, there was so much more left that we could have done. And we now have the opportunity to do that. And so I'm really looking forward to
I think it would have been
getting
harder
on
if
to
it was 5 years after we'd broken up to write, but because it's been such a long time, we're probably back to square one in a way.
I just think that everybody's gone away and got all of their personal things out of the way, not just in life but also in terms of music. I mean, I couldn't write anymore with Culture Club. After Colour by Numbers, I was burned anyway. We worked so hard and did so much that I didn't have any more songs in me, and also I didn't want to do Culture Club then. So we all kind of forced Culture Club for a while. To be quite honest, I don't know if creatively. I mean, everybody had to go away. George got his albums out the way. John had other bands. Mikey did his things. I did a solo album. I've been doing film and television music. I've produced. I've written songs. So I'm in a place now where the thought of actually writing songs with Culture Club, as daunting as it is, it's also quite exciting. The best songs with Culture Club are written like that, where somebody did something that inspired somebody else and that just went round the room. Church of the Poison Mind was written, bang, it was like a Kids from Fame session. John just started going bang, 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 and Mike was like, oh man, I got the piano. George started singing, and then obviously went away and developed the lyrics, but the essence of the song was literally written in about 3 minutes. Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? Rhythm machine, rhythm box turned on, started playing some chords. George started coming up with a melody, bass line, bang, it's done. And all of the great Culture Club songs were done like that, including Just Wanna Be Loved, the new single. It was very instant. It was like, let's do this thing, grooving, lovers rock, bang. And hopefully it's been enough time and there's enough ideas within us all that when we sit down to actually do that, it will be like that. Because we've never been cerebral. If we start thinking too much, we did start thinking too much. You can tell on the last 2 albums. Musically, they're very intricate, but there's no soul there. And I think, hopefully, like George has been through a lot, I've been through a lot, everyone's been through a lot more life. If we can bring that together with that sort of naive charm that Culture Club had musically as well, who knows what could happen. But I think there's definitely songs in us again.
And there's no competition, really. There isn't anybody else, like us. We were never like any of the other bands in the 80s. I mean, we got lumped in with the whole new romantic thing, but we weren't new romantic, we weren't electronic. Our music was very organic. Mm-hmm. We weren't like Duran Duran, we weren't selling kudos, and we weren't doing videos with, probably much to Roy's disappointment, with lots of leggy beauties and bottles of champagne and yachts. I never ever felt that we were like any of those other bands. I never felt that we had the same message, the same attitude or anything. So, in that respect, we're not like those other 80s bands because we didn't have a distinctive sound either.
What was the inspiration?
Well, I Just Want to Be Loved it's about John. It's a song about saying goodbye to somebody and moving on from a situation. I mean, we wrote it in 1990, and at that time there was, I think, a lot more bad blood between all of us. And that's why it never got off the ground. It never, ever got off the ground because there was too much anger and frustration and bitterness. So it's weird to record that song. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever asked me what it's about because it's so obvious what it's about, I think. Do You Really Want to Hurt Me was very like, oh, woe is me. All the early songs were about being a victim. And I think I Just Want to Be Loved is me saying that I know what I want now. And in that respect, I've moved on as a writer because I try not to write about being a victim anymore. Although, there is always going to be melancholy in what I write because I don't do happy very well. I find it very hard to write happy songs. And I think the interesting thing about Culture Club was all the songs appeared to be very jolly. They had a kind of jolly surface, but the undercurrent was always quite sad, which I think is again, another one of those contradictions about this band.
Started Culture Club, what sort of band did you want to be?
I wanted to be Bowie. I wanted to be dangerously weird, hairless, living on the edge. I wanted to be the kind of artist that your mother didn't want you to go and see, but that's not what happened.
Your mother came as well.
Made a temporary mistake and did Culture Club.
I think when the 4 of us actually got together eventually, we were sort of a left-of-field neo-romantic type band. And John, who had been playing sort of punk, gob-spitting rock, decided that he was fed up with that and that we should go in a pop direction. And it was really when you arrived that You're responsible.
The original name was Sex Gang Children. We were called the Sex Gang Children. See, I had a very brief stint in Bow Wow Wow working with Michael McLaren.
So won't get hit with that one. No.
And I said, I want to call the band the Sex Gang Children. So it gives you an idea of what I wanted.
Also, In Praise of Lemmings was another name, wasn't it?
Praise of Lemmings, yeah, but that was a bit too dreary. And I think it was John that said, well, I think what happened was that John bought me a Hasidic hat, because I was big on hats. He bought me this proper Hasidic hat. And that sort of started the idea of Culture Club. And John said, look at us, you know, Irish Queen, Jew, big old Anglo-Saxon, and a Jamaican. So it really made sense to call the band Culture Club. I think we toyed around with like Can't Wait Club or Caravan Club because I wanted this idea of movement. But then Culture Club sounded the most sensible.
Toilet Club.
Closet Club.
Did the three guys ever feel that George grabbed the limelight at the expense of the band?
I was angry for a while about it, but George had such a powerful image that, of course, the media were going to pick up on that and write about it. It became too much too quickly because everybody wanted a piece of George, and there wasn't enough left creatively for us.
It
and
focused on the
time-wise.
image too much.
No, I think a lot of it was that, you know, when you get successful really quickly, I mean, Culture Club happened really quickly. And you don't have anything to kind of measure it by, you know, you just literally ride the wave. So we were doing so much publicity because you almost have this feeling that it's all going to disappear overnight, so you do all this stuff. We didn't understand the idea of supply and demand, you know, and in a way, you know, that wouldn't have worked for us. Being mysterious like Prince or Michael Jackson would not have worked for us. But I think my need for publicity was just insatiable at a certain point. I mean, I think that a lot of celebrities become victims of their own media. And I think what happened to me is that my need for publicity kind of went far and beyond, you know, the necessary things that were needed to promote the band. It was like, I just got eaten up by it. And I think that's what's changed. You know, I don't sort of go out, you know, now sort of deliberately trying to get photographed, which I did in the 80s. I mean, I literally thought about it every day. I thought, what can I do now to get publicity? And I think what happens is that I got crucified by the very thing that I kind of craved. So there was a lesson in that for me. You know, I got killed by the press, if you like. They sort of created the monster and they destroyed the monster. But as I've got older, I've realised that I had much more of a hand in that than I ever thought. You know, I could have changed it if I wanted to. I think our big problem as a band, we were too available. You know, and most bands aren't interesting and they don't have anything to say. And when you do, everybody wants to have you on, you know, and everybody wants to interview you. And we were doing like In-Flight magazine and things like that. You know, we were going to the opening of a toilet seat, or I was anyway. And I think that's what's changed now. You know, the way that I look at my career now is very differently. And I think that also affects us. You know, I don't have that hunger anymore, so it's different.
The dresses have gone, but I see you've kept the hat and dreadlocks, George. Is dressing up still important to you?
My way of dressing is how I feel on the day. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't wear this every day, and I don't.
You're lucky you got the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't wear it. No, I mean, dressing up for me isn't about just about the sort of the band. It's just about making myself look nicer. That's, you know, I've done that since I was 13. I looked at myself when I was 13. I had no shoulders, curly hair, hated the way I looked, and I've spent the last God knows how many years making myself look more exotic. It may not be somebody else's idea of beauty, but it's mine. I like the way I look. Yeah. I mean, like, it's odd when, you know, because I think women ask me that a lot. They say, why do you wear makeup? Well, for the same reason you do. You know, same reason why any other woman wears makeup, although I'm not female, but I have the mind of a female. And the body of a bricklayer.
What do you remember as a highlight of those early years?
The first number one you have, you never forget. Also, Top of the Pops. It's amazing. But I can't remember the rest.
I mean, hearing that countdown, you know, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Culture Club. That was
having a number one and being on Top of the Pops.
But I think originally, like the first time we got played on the radio, I mean, we got played on the Peter Powell show. We did a session, and for me, that was just like proof. I mean, I had to call everybody that I knew in the world and have them listen to the radio between, you know, sort of, was it about 6 and 8 to make sure they heard us. And it was like finally proof that we were a real band, that I actually did something other than dress up. And that was one of the highlights. And also having the first ever record. like having the first ever piece of vinyl sleeve with the Culture Club.
Playing Madison Square Gardens was just insane. I mean, how we could have been this little band starting in clubs, you know,
Essex.
being like a little hip, playing in clubs in Essex and London, playing, you know, to like a hip London crowd, and then ending up playing to 20,000 people in Madison Square Gardens was amazing. Winning a Grammy was incredible. I look at my Grammy now, people come in my studio in LA and they go, wow. And I'm like, oh yeah, wow. You know, that's a big thing, you know. But the funny thing is, because we were so wrapped up in it and the whole drama and the whole, that was number one, but the next one has to be number one, and it was all that insanity. And that's why now to do it again is so much fun, because, you know...
When you're young, you know, one thing I realise, you never really get to fully enjoy your success, because you think, right, we've got to do the next thing, which is actually the right way to think to a certain extent. And now that we're older, the burden's been taken off. But it is weird, you never actually really fully enjoy the success.
That very much, you know, destroyed us in the end. It was just, we were just rushing at 100 miles an hour.
It just picked up too
in
fast.
particular, the third album suffered. I mean, we wrote and recorded it in 6 weeks.
I enjoyed making the first two albums, and I enjoyed touring and playing live. I hated making videos, and I used to run away from it. You know, and that's why to have an opportunity to
Now
do this
you've
again.
changed.
No, you know what? But now you know what? I can say I don't like doing press. I don't particularly enjoy doing press. You know, I'll come here and it's fine. You know, and I'll do it. But you know, I'm 37 years of age now. I don't really care. You know, I'm kind of happy what I do now, and that's why at this time I'm going to enjoy Culture Club. And if it stops becoming fun, I'm not going to do it anymore.
One thing you have to remember, that it's work. I mean, you think of being a pop
No, it
group or
isn't
being
work.
successful.
It can't be work.
Well, of course,
It's work.
you don't get
God.
something for nothing in life,
No,
right?
I'm
So,
gone.
you know.
Because there isn't enough here
What,
to
so
make it work.
anything that doesn't...
I've worked. I've just
Anything
worked
you don't
for 12
enjoy,
years.
if you stop enjoying something,
No,
just
I've
run
just
away
worked
from
for
it.
12 years.
Fair
When
enough,
I
okay.
compose for film and television, I'm working.
good one.
You know, when I'm doing this, I don't want to see it as work. If it becomes work, you can't look at rock and roll as work or pop music as work.
No, I don't mean, you know what I mean. There are some things that you don't want to do to make the things that you want to do happen. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They have to be done.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, travelling when you're on tour and stuff, that's work, but it's for something that you really enjoy doing. That's what
of
I'm
course,
saying.
but that's what I'm saying. Is you have to do some things you
Right.
don't want to do to make the things you want to do work.
Right.
That's all.
There you are, you got around.
I think it's all about kind of striking a balance. You know, I mean, it is work. Whatever way you look at it, there are certain aspects of what we do that are work. But if you compare it with what other people have to do to earn a living, it isn't work. Of course not. But you know, there are certain aspects of being in a band. You know, you talk about it more than you actually do it. It's a bit like sex. You know, you spend all your time talking about what you do, and then you spend an hour on stage or 3 minutes on TV or a minute on TV talking about it. It's all about hanging around and waiting in rock and roll.
How are you coping with life on the road, second time round?
I went everywhere by road in America because that's how I like to do it. I like to be in tour bus because it's like a sanctuary. Once you've done the gig, you get in your tour bus and nobody can bother you. You haven't got to be worried about people following you into the hotel. You know, you're just there in your little world and you go off to the next gig. And for me, like, swimming every day is essential on the road because it's good for the voice. I'm vegetarian, so just trying to find healthy things to eat. You know, it's a real battle, particularly in America. You really have to hunt around for a decent meal.
In America, that's horrible.
Yeah, and getting English cigarettes. I had people like flying in cigarettes, like people that are doing interviews. You can come and do an interview, but you have to bring some duty free. But I think, you know, you just really have to just accept that you're going to be away for 6 weeks and life isn't going to be how you normally live it, and you just kind of sink into it, and it's great fun. I mean, I really did enjoy it. I was sad when we got to the end. It was like 2 more gigs and I got really depressed. It's like 2 more gigs. I thought it was longer. So, you know, it's a weird thing. It's like when you go on holiday. You always enjoy the last 3 days the most.
What is it like to walk back on stage after 13 years?
Well, we did Monte Carlo, so we did 3 nights in Monte Carlo where we were basically playing.
France.
We were playing to sort of millionaires and their younger girlfriends, their courtesans. So, and it was very staid. People clapped very politely and they didn't react, and they spoke French, so a lot of the humour went over their heads. So going to Atlanta, where it was like 9,000 people, everybody knew the songs. They were ready. We had the Humour League on first, and you know that was a real pop event. So it was like a return to form. You know, I mean, I've done a lot of gigs since I've left Culture Club, but I haven't done gigs to that capacity and with that much warmth.
Like George said, when the crowd in Atlanta they were going crazy before we even came on the stage. And the moment the lights went down, it was like mayhem. And I was like, whoa, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think it takes a little while to find your feet, having been away from the stage for God knows how long. I mean, none of us have done, apart from John. George has done about 400 gigs away from us, so it was okay for him. But for us, it was quite nerve-wracking. But the audiences were amazing, absolutely amazing.
I mean, when we did the Storytellers VH1 show, I remember it's probably one of the most emotional moments of my life when we walked back on that stage to play again after all this time, and we'd rehearsed, and suddenly the cameras were on, the crowd was there, and out we walked. And I wasn't anticipating how I felt at all. I just went, my heart was in my mouth, and it was incredible. But in a really exciting way. I was like, I had no idea it was going to do this to me.
Who came to the shows?
We had quite a lot of new audience, which was very interesting and encouraging. And they were singing along with the songs as well. I mean, as though they knew them first time around.
Kids, didn't they?
Yeah, lots of kids were there, which was wonderful. It was brilliant. So at least 25% were new audience throughout the whole tour, which was encouraging.
There were kids there, but from about 17 to 50, probably 20% gay. A lot of couples, a lot of people just wanted to revisit their Reagan and Thatcher years and have a fun time in nostalgia land and
so they came to
scream at their old icons, Don't scream at me, I'm 37. All right then. Thank you.
And why did you decide on Church of the Poison Mind as your opener and Karma Chameleon as your encore?
Some songs are easy to kind of set up the sound with, and Church of the Poison Mind is quite straightforward in that respect, so that's quite a good song. It's up, energetic, but without being too complicated, so that's a good opener for us. And Karma Chameleon is a great song because, it leaves people on a high. It really does. I mean, it's just one of those weird songs because I never ever considered it to be one of the greatest songs we ever wrote, but for some reason, people have a lot of affection for that song. And you watch people in the crowd literally going mad, jumping around, singing the words. And it's just strange. It's really strange.
It is a strange one. It's definitely struck a chord in people, that song. There's something about it, it's like a nursery rhyme. It just has that...
Don't you find you see it from a different angle?
I do, I used to hate that song. I know it's quite famous that I wasn't a particular fan of Karma Chameleon. It's quite a famous story.
Very famous.
But,
it's a country song.
I'll tell you in a moment.
Although when the royalties came in, he bought himself a nice house in Bel Air.
Yeah. I mean...
Didn't give them to charity.
Well, I didn't hate you that much. No.
You have other US states.
When we do United Kingdom, we're very excited because we're going to have the Human League and ABC with us, so it's going to be a great show.
In December.
Yeah.
We're just waiting at the moment to see. I mean, we got touring until the end of this year, and then we'll see how we feel. We'll see. Maybe in the summertime would be a good time to do Europe, do some of the festivals and things like that.
That'd be nice.
Love Culture Club to do Glastonbury. That would be the biggest thrill of my life. I'd love to do that.
I think we'll probably go to Japan and Australia, and possibly South America as well. I don't think you know about this yet,
Not
George.
for a while, though. Not for a
Next
while.
week, actually.
I'd rather do some recording and then go out on the back of a new record rather than just go out on a kind of nostalgia trip around the rest of the world. So
It's more with us. Now, it's just one step at a time.
How much of your life is now taken up with Culture Club, and are you still pursuing other projects?
Everything's on hold.
Yeah.
For this.
Not for me.
Not for me either, actually, let's be honest.
I'm off DJing this weekend. I've got gigs. In between all our dates, I've got DJing gigs, and I'll be doing that whenever there's a spare space.
I mean, apart from, all we'll be doing in between is writing, but mainly, we'll be touring.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll be writing individually.
Given sufficient space, I'd like to keep my hand in with the film and television thing.
Let's keep your hand in.
Yeah, because it's one of those things.
Keep your hand in your pocket.
It's constantly evolving in that world, and I work with a company that's right in there. So every time I go back, I have to get in the studio and do some things just to keep my head in that space as well.
What's the latest news on the film of your autobiography, George?
The movie of my autobiography is in progress. It's hopefully going to be starting either the end of this year or beginning of next year. At the moment, the script's done, and there are certain people who've been talked to about playing roles. Number one being Julie Waters, who hopefully is going to be my mum. And at the moment, some American companies are getting involved to sort of, add money to the project, because you can't really start filming until we've got enough millions to do so. But that should happen pretty soon. I'm quite excited about that. I think that the idea is to get somebody unknown to play me and get everybody else, all the supporting actors, to be sort of big names.
If you could change anything about your career, would you?
I don't think there's any point whatsoever in changing what's happened, because you don't learn from, you learn more from the sort of awful things that happen. And I think Culture Club was always a mixture of like elation and misery. Even the kind of drug aspect of my career, I don't really regret. I mean, I don't think you have to kind of cut off your ear to become enlightened. I don't think it's a route you have to take. And if I had my chance all over again, it's certainly something I wouldn't repeat. But again, I think you learn more from the sort of bad periods in your life than you do from the good.
This is incredible. We survived. The fact that we survived, the four of us can be here now and still make music is just incredible. To me, that's so amazing that we're just even here.